Hello, it's Debbie Gilbert from the Business Awards Show, and I'm also the founder of the Best Business Women Awards. And today we're heading right across the world to Cape Town in South Africa to talk to Lisa Robyn Wood, who is the middle manager coach. She's the owner of Grip Coaching Limited. And she has been a judge this year for the first time on the Best Business Women Awards. But she's not new to judging because she's also judged the Women's Utility Boards as well. So we're going to be talking to her about her business journey, about her podcast, because she also has a great podcast too. And we're also going to talk to her a bit about what middle management coaching is, and finishing up with talking about judging awards, which is always good to glean some insights from judges. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Debbie. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me to join you for this chat.
Shall I be very British, Lisa, and say to you, what's the weather like in South Africa?
I know. Well, it is winter here now. So it's winter in July, which some could argue sometimes feels true of being in the UK as well. So there's not much to differentiate. But I can say confidently, knowing that I believe it is hot finally for you guys over there. It is cold here. So although it's sunny, it's cold. And I don't think I'd ever experienced South Africa cold before. And it is a weird concept, actually, to even think that Africa as a whole can be cold, but it can. So it's cold. Yeah, it's cold. I've been wearing my woolly hats and my coats.
Oh my goodness.
So,
I never even realised it got that cold in South Africa.
Yeah, it's still not UK cold.
Cold, okay.
Still not UK cold, but it is cold. And I think a lot to do is, you're in a place that's beautiful, you've got beaches, it is sunny, you do consciously know you're in Africa, and the houses are built for summer because most of the year it is hot and sunny, so they can't handle any load. So yeah, it's a bit chilly. I'm a bit desperate for warmth because I've experienced a lot of the UK this year and last year as well when I was back home, being cold and wet. I didn't get much sunny or hot weather the past 12 months in the UK. So yeah.
There you go. So if you are listening to the podcast, this is not a weather podcast. We just thought we would mention a bit about
it's the topic of conversation. Us Brits can't avoid the chat about the weather, especially when we know that we're in different parts of the world.
I know. Yeah. And so you divide your time between South Africa and the UK.
Yes.
So we met at a networking group, which was online a few years ago. And, I've always loved your entrepreneurial spirit. So talk about where your journey has taken you. I mean, obviously you're in South Africa now, but I mean, Grip Coaching is your coaching business, but you've had I think you've had a very interesting journey to Grip Coaching. So share a bit about that.
Oh, thanks. I'm flattered already. It's only just started. So I carved out my career in the energy industry in the UK. So I came straight out of university. I was a drama graduate. So the obvious thing, obviously, was to go into an energy company when you've done that. And realised the opportunity to earn money, grow, develop in a very broad, varied, large and affluent industry, one that I couldn't have cared less about until I actually started in it. But I really enjoyed my time there and was fortunate to progress, take on more responsibility, gain seniority. And it was in 2014 when I myself was in a middle management role. So I classify middle management as the layer that sits below the execs. And I was excited, I was proud, I was motivated. However, very quickly, I would have said, I started to feel quite stressed out, quite anxious, started to feel a real lack of confidence. And I've always been quite a confident person who's had strong belief in themselves and their capabilities. But in that year, for whatever reason, and at the time I really couldn't fathom what that was, I didn't feel that strong or capable in myself. And it caused me a lot of unhappiness that year, to the point that I nearly quit. And I had a really good job and I loved the people I worked with. I loved the company I worked for. So it didn't make any sense to me logically. And I'm quite a logical person. And in my head, I was like, there's no point quitting because you don't know why you're quitting other than you're miserable. And you don't really know what you're going to do next. So trying to apply for new jobs was actually impossible because I didn't have the motivation or the interest in doing it. And I don't think I would have got through an interview because the confidence was that crushed. So I sought out coaching, and that was because actually my dad said, "Why don't you get a coach?" And I'd never heard of coaching before, not outside of the world of sport. I'd never heard of it in a professional context. And to be honest, after initially shrugging it off and being very proud around my own like skills development and being like, I don't need any help, I was desperate, so I thought, sod it, I'll go and seek out coaching then. And I just found the whole experience completely transformational, which sounds so cliched, especially coming from a qualified coach, because we love the word transformation, but it's true. There isn't a better word for it in terms of my experience. And one of the realizations I had was what an incredible skill coaching was and how much I would myself love to be able to do it, because a big part of the lack of confidence I had in myself at the time was to do with my strengths as a leader, and a leader of people, and being really truly able to empower and grow others. And coaching, I realized, was an incredible tool and skill that could enable all of those things and enable me to be so much better as a leader. So I decided to invest in my own coaching training and qualification. And that's where GRIP came from. So it is tongue in cheek because I'm very passionate about individuals connecting with their capabilities and their strengths and their confidence to enable them to succeed better. I love seeing people succeed. So now is a brilliant time to talk about this because the Olympics are on. I cry throughout the Olympics and it's tears of joy because I just love seeing people achieving their dreams, overcoming obstacles, realizing just how amazing they are. And that's a big part of the drivers for me as to why I coach people. And that's where GRIP came from, because it was a bit tongue-in-cheek around getting a grip of your success.
I didn't realise that. That's
Yeah, so
interesting. So that's where it came from.
Yeah, there is some element of sarcasm, so it doesn't always translate culturally, but it's not supposed to be insulting. But I hope it gives people a bit of a tone of what to expect when it comes to coaching with me, because I don't take myself very seriously. I don't think any of us really should. I don't think that's the way to live. I think it was the Queen that said famously, Queen Elizabeth, our most recent Queen, about not taking yourself too seriously.
She's right.
And there is an element of, for me, about using humour and being humorous and to enjoy things. And it was always something I sought out in my corporate career, was trying to find the humour, the joy, the fun, because a lot of the time it was pretty dry. And we did take ourselves too seriously at times. Maybe not so much in energy. I went to work for Lucozade Ribena for a few years, which was awesome, and a much more creative, vibrant industry and business. But even those days when you were really under the cosh and stressed and feeling overwhelmed, there were those of us that did get together and go, you do know we're just selling soft drink.
It's not, yeah.
Come on, people, like, I know it's tough. I know we want to do a good job, but it's just fizzy pop. So like, I think there's an element of that. So I think that's a big part of GRIP. And then the middle manager coach is because that is my passion. I think that's the layer of management that is forgotten about. It's not invested in, and it's a tough place to operate. And that is from personal experience. But I think my story from 10 years ago, I find still resonates with clients today, and it's still their experience. It's still getting talked about, and there's loads of stats around the middle management layer.
So it's not, things aren't changing maybe as much as they could have changed in 10 years. Is that your experience?
Oh, absolutely. But isn't that a good thing? Otherwise, my business will.
Let's not change it.
Yeah, let's not change it too quickly.
So
let's make sure there's still a need. I still need people to know. I'm joking.
So you started your business as a side hustle to begin with, didn't you? And then developed it into your full-time role. So talk a bit about how that was, trying to juggle the two.
God, do you know what? Mentally, I think about it now. I'm like, how the hell did you do that? I'm not quite sure. But isn't that the wonder? You see, that's when I'm
Mm,
like, look how capable we really are if we really want something. But
mm,
yeah, so I qualified as a coach in 2016 and was still in my corporate role within the energy industry and loved it, and really used my time in that environment to refine, develop, accelerate my skills in coaching, and realized I don't want to niche in the energy sector. I don't want to be an expert in energy. I want to be an expert in people and leadership and management. So what better way to really put that to test than transitioning into a completely different environment and seeing how I operate there, which was my move to Lucozade. And I really internally rebranded myself as a leadership coach. Yes, I worked in customer services and supply chain, and then I actually worked in sales as well. But I always led with I'm a coach and a leadership specialist. And then, by the way, this is what I do operationally as my contract role. And I think it was probably a bit of an exercise in personal branding, which I don't know whether I acknowledged it as such then, but that is what it was about. And to try and see if actually I could transition into that role, because people knew me as an operational leader. So it was trying to elevate it further and put it to the test, because I'm not the biggest, I'm probably quite risk adverse, really. And so stepping out of a very secure, comfortable, well-paid corporate job just didn't
mm,
feel right to me at the time when I first qualified. I was like, never say never, but I'm not ready. So having grip as a brand was important to me, because I felt like it was the foundation for me to be able to talk about my coaching. And I found that helpful. And it gave me a little bit of security in itself, I think. And actually, when you create these things, I built a website. Suddenly it's like, it's a real thing.
mm,
It's a real thing. I'm not just talking about it. It's a real thing. Um, but it did get to the point in 2019 where my husband and I were talking about, well, where am I going with this? And as much as I love corporate, and I'm very grateful for opportunities that came through working in such big brands and businesses, I was still having to do an awful lot of things that I just didn't really want to do. And one thing coaching taught me when I was coached myself 10 years ago was all the things we believe we should do, but we cannot always fathom where they've come from. So, like, for example, at the time, I had a real connection with, I could only reward myself and be successful if things were really hard. So I
mm,
had to, it was though I had this notion that, for example, being a leader, it was just that it was really bloody difficult and hard work and painful and uncomfortable. And that's just the way it was. And if I didn't overcome that, then I wasn't successful and I wasn't able to reward myself. So I had this guilt association with doing things I liked doing at work. Because if I was doing something I really enjoyed, it was easy. And then I felt really guilty about that. And actually, coaching flagged it. And I was like, oh, this is weird. Because I think it was my coach that went, you do know that you can and are allowed to just do the things you enjoy now. Don't you think you've been working for long enough to have earned that? And I was like,
mm,
yeah,
mm,
it's weird. So I think it kind of reappeared as an idea in 2019 when I had this conversation with my husband and went, I should probably just give it a go. Like, why am I still doing things within my corporate roles that I hate? I don't enjoy this stuff. Or just to try and then carve out the
mm,
couple of moments when I'm doing what I really want. It's all the wrong way round. So my husband had a pub and hotel in the Cotswolds in Oxfordshire. We were married by this point, and he was wanting to progress his business to the next stage. And so he said, should we run it together as a proper husband-wife team, run it like a family pub? And that gives you the ability, the security to operate your coaching business as a side and see if you can get it off the ground. So it was a much more secure way of doing it.
mm,
Obviously, I've got so much admiration for all of you entrepreneurs who started out with just doing what you do, because I couldn't have probably done what I did in the way that I wanted to do it without that backing. I kind of have my silent investor, I guess.
mm.
Um, and so, yeah, that was 2019. So I left Lucozade at the end of 2019. And then COVID happened in March 2020.
Yes. Oh
So
my
it would have been
goodness.
nice to have maybe have known that in advance.
Yeah.
I sort of think, what a better place to start a business than from scratch right at the bottom. The only way's up from there. you've had the, you know, it's a bit like, you know, I've obviously spoken to you, Debbie, in length about what it was like being an entrepreneur during 2008 in the recession, and the recessions that followed, and what it teaches you about yourself and your, you know, your innovation, your creativity, your ability to be resilient. Like, I've had to do that from the first day, because the first year, even 2 years, I would say, was so difficult because of COVID. Not just from carving out a successful side business, but the mental drain it took on me from doing that while also supporting my husband, while also navigating all of the different regulations that hit the hospitality industry, let
Oh,
alone
it
us.
must have been horrendous for you having
Like,
a
it was
pub
just,
in
yeah,
COVID.
it was such a yo-yo. And I say now, I mean, it was the hardest job I've ever done. It's harder than anything I ever dealt with at a very senior corporate level. You know, forget negotiating millions of pounds. Like, this was not nothing compared to dealing with a pub 24/7. So that sold at the end of 22. That was the intention. So we achieved my husband's goal, which was brilliant and really exciting. And then it was end of 21, sorry. Then it was, right, it's now or never then. So I couldn't hide behind COVID, and I couldn't hide behind I'm supporting my husband in his business and I haven't got the capacity. It was like, no, it's now or never. So I kind of say that for me, my full-time entrepreneur role in Grip started in 22. That's when in 22, when that became I became the director. It was a limited company. So that's, for me, my real start date. Also helps then when I'm looking at my balance sheets going, yeah, nothing really happened in those years. Turnover was rubbish. Don't know if we're allowed to go on this, Debbie. I nearly used the S word. It helps with that, because I can be like, no, those 2 years were, those few years, doesn't matter.
Building, you were building, you were
Yeah,
building,
yeah.
you were building.
So yeah,
So you started a podcast called The
yes,
Coaching Cast. When did you
yeah.
start that?
So that started during COVID. So
Right.
I think it was we launched at the beginning of 2021. I want to say this. My podcast partner Suzy, if she ever listens to it, be like, that's not the date. Yeah, I think that's right. 2021, or was it 2020? No, must have, no. We came up with the idea in 2020. So that summertime we had in 2020, that was amazing. During most of which we were in lockdown, and all of us got to just enjoy the sunshine and sunbathe and stuff. Suzy had the idea for the podcast in that period, and we met during the release, between lockdown 1 and
I know,
lockdown 2.
lockdown 2, yeah. Oh,
So that's when we came up with the idea. We refined it, and we started recording in the beginning of 2021. So yeah, so the podcast is now over 3 years old now. Yeah, so we literally, as of Tuesday, have recorded our 90th episode.
wow.
So yeah, 90 episodes of the Coaching Cast. So yeah, so actually 2021 I was building up my coaching business, launching a podcast, dealing with COVID, and running a pub.
I think that deserves an award somewhere along the line.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and doing all my own marketing and everything, because as a solopreneur, as everyone says, you know, you do all of it. So yeah, so that was a bit crazy, but yeah, so the podcast is over 3 years old now.
Excellent. What sort of things do you talk about on your podcast?
So the idea for the podcast came up because Suzy had started her maternity leave with her first child and was walking around with the pram, trying to find podcasts to listen to while she was on maternity leave, that she felt tapped into her need to want to stay connected to the workplace, to leadership, to topics around both, and ensure that she felt connected to it, ready for when she came back off maternity leave into the workplace. And she just couldn't find anything she felt was suitable, and that had the right balance between being informative and educational while still being enjoyable to listen to, and also a bit human and a bit more real. And so her idea really was, let's create something to fill the gap. And so, you know, flattered she thought of me. As anyone who's listening to this will be like, oh, well, I can understand why, because she can talk and I can. I've always got something to say. So that's where it came from. So initially it was around, how do we provide a community for people who are working from home and navigating COVID, because it started during the third lockdown. and wanting that connection they've lost from the workplace, from those serendipitous moments with colleagues around the water cooler, that kind of thing, where you actually create so many ideas and share so much information in passing conversations while you're making a cup of tea. So that's how it started, and it's kind of continued in that space, but evolved into really producing episodes that have an element of us sharing our experiences as leaders in corporate businesses to now entrepreneurs, because we both have our own coaching businesses. Suzy specializes in sales, and covering a wide range of topics that we feel are current, relevant, that help anyone who's in the workplace, probably more directed toward leaders and managers, just navigate some of the challenges out there, or help them to refine skills that they want to grow in a way that comes from a place of two people who've been there, done it, still doing it, still learning, and bring coaching to the table. So there is an element of wanting to make coaching more tangible, because I think for a lot of people, they still don't necessarily understand it. So we sort of talk about things with a tone of coaching. There's an underlying principle often, and things we share will come from a coaching space that we encourage people, should they want to just have a go themselves, try it out, see how it affects them. But yeah, we've covered quite a range of topics. So we've had topics around managing a toxic boss, how to give feedback, how to receive feedback. It's just as challenging at times. How to, we've had guests on to talk about employee engagement, like what actually is it, what we're talking about. We recently recorded an episode this week around technology and AI in the workplace, and
that's interesting.
which was really
That's
interesting.
becoming more prevalent now, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like it's everywhere, and I'm not well informed. So the beauty of the podcast often is it is a way that me and Suzy ourselves stay informed and educate ourselves. We've talked about the menopause at work. We've talked about personal branding at work. We've talked about so many different things. As I said, 90 episodes. There's a lot there.
A lot of
Hopefully
content.
it's all useful, but yeah.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about awards. So how did you get involved in the Women's Utility Awards, and what was that like, judging that?
Wow, it was amazing. It's the inaugural awards this year. I can't believe it is, considering how old the energy industry is and how many women work in it. The fact that this is the first ever Women in Utilities Awards. It was really special, really special. So I absolutely loved being part of something that for me is so historically significant. I joined the Women's Utility Network as an associate to support the network last year. So one of the co-founders is a lady called Hayley Monks, who I worked with at British Gas many years ago. And Hayley is really a very strong female voice in the energy industry, very experienced, very passionate about both the industry, but ensuring that women thrive and succeed in the industry. She's a real voice for women in that space. And I know that comes a lot from her own personal experience of being in the industry and being successful herself, yes, and progressing into a very senior position within it, but also the challenges that she experienced along the way. And I think what she's created with the fellow co-founder Jo Butlin is a real space where women can come together and support one another, and it's very much about backing each other. I think it's such an incredible network they've built. It's over 6,000 strong now, members wise, and it's growing all the time. And it's supported by multiple major energy industry partners, big names like you would expect, like British Gas and E.ON and EDF and big energy suppliers, but actually also other people, partners that support the industry that you wouldn't necessarily know about. But yeah, really amazing group of women, incredible network, incredible resources that they provide. So I think Hayley approached me knowing what I'm doing now, and knowing about obviously being familiar with my background in the industry and my passion for it, and asking if I wanted to be involved. So yeah, it feels like a very privileged place to be operating in such a positive space. So yeah, I absolutely love it. And the awards experience, wow. I mean, I was honoured to be invited to be a judge for the first ever awards. And I mean, it was tough. I had two categories to judge. I think there was over 40 nominations between them. So to go through every single one and just stories of women and what they're achieving in some very male dominated spaces. There was a lot of applications from engineers, and hearing not just that women are succeeding, but they're loving it as well. I love that.
That's
And I've
good.
met many more women engineers since who I'm in awe of. And to hear how well they're doing and how much they love it and how they're advocating for other women to come into it is extraordinary. But yeah, it was very humbling, very intimidating, I think. I think I read a lot of applicants and was like, what the hell? I was thinking, God, I can barely look after myself, my husband and my dog most days, let alone run my business. So to hear what they're juggling and achieving and the positive contribution they're making to what is, you know, we're such a tiny country, really, but our energy network, our utilities network, actually, because this includes water, is so complicated. And so there's so many layers, there's so many players in it. Incredible where people are really managing to make a difference and and actually, I tell you what, the other reason why it was so wonderful is our media is so guilty of only talking about all the crap. They don't talk about positive stories, especially not about the energy industry, the utility sector overall. I mean, I feel like 2024 has been the year of the water company enemies. All I feel like I've read about is all the terrible things our water companies are doing. Fine, they're getting things wrong. I know that. I'm not pretending they're not, but they're also doing a lot of great stuff with really awful, aging, lacking of invested equipment. And it's like, there's so many things I've learned that I didn't know. Like, did you know, by the way, this is a great one. Did you know that fetal matter is used as biofuel?
No.
Isn't that incredible?
But I do now.
Yeah. But no one talks about that.
No, but that is
This is
incredible.
amazing.
A way to use waste to create an energy
And that's
source.
normal practice. And actually, someone like organisations like Thames Water, who are really in the, like, you know, in the firing line, the amount of biofuel that they produce and enable our country to use to produce energy, heat, is insane. No one talks about that. So don't get me wrong, I get there's problems environmentally. I'm not taking away from it, but
what you're saying is that you enjoyed watching women in this industry being celebrated, which I think is amazing. And it was a post that I saw you'd done on LinkedIn where you were speaking about being a judge, and I thought, oh, I need another judge on my panel for the Best Business Women Awards. And I thought, right, I'm going to reach out to Lisa, even though I knew you had divided your time up between the UK and South Africa. So you came on board for the first year as a judge with the Best Business Women Awards. So obviously that was looking at applications from all different industries rather than just the utilities. So what did you find was the differences, or weren't there any? I mean, was the passion coming across in the same way as the other awards? I'm just interested to know.
No, I think what I really noticed in the Best Businesswomen Awards was the creativity and innovation, and that I know you very kindly referred to my entrepreneurial spirit, not maybe something I necessarily recognize in myself, but I love that other people do. But that was so strong in these awards, and it was so inspiring how people have built what they've built, from many of those that I reviewed, from their own ideas and things that I would never have thought of. And I think that always astounds me with people, the capacity for their creativity and the ideas and the originality and
the innovation.
Oh my God, and how they create a product that people want. That is something I think is so hard to do. I think, you know, the big brands make it look like it's easy because we've just become so used to living with certain things. That's what we want because that's what we know. And we feel like it's a part of what we have to have. And therefore, reading it from those women who've created something on a much smaller scale, but still managed to create something profitable and something that's got demand. Yeah, I think I found that absolutely incredible. And the quality of what they're doing and delivering and how they're doing it, and the communities they've built, which is so hard to do. Like, that is not easy. I've been trying to build that kind of community presence with my podcast for nearly 4 years. I know how hard it is.
It's very hard.
And so reading these stories of women who are being successful doing it, and what's driving them, and the passion that's like coming through the page, it was amazing. I loved reading through them. And I think as a fellow entrepreneur, you get so much, as I said, you get so much energy from that, because you totally appreciate it. It's not like I'm reading it from my salaried benefit in, like, corporate job. I get what it takes to do what they've done. I'm still trying to do it. I don't think they're yet by any means. So knowing, the time, the energy, the effort, all of it, it really does give you yourself that motivation, spirit. And I think it's brilliant seeing other people succeeding. Like, I mean, I talked about how much I love seeing people succeed, but it does enable you to feel like you believe it can be possible.
Yes, and I think that's the key, isn't it? I think being a judge, you realise what other people have overcome and how they've pushed through on the challenges and how they've created a business that's successful. It isn't easy. It isn't easy being employed, as we know. That has another set of challenges. But I think running your own business when you're responsible for absolutely everything is quite difficult and quite tricky. So what's next for you? What's next for Grit Coaching? Where are you going with your business?
So I am a coach. That is what I'm qualified in. It's what I'm passionate about. It's what I love to do. I'm also a trainer as well. So I do leadership and management training. So I've done more training this year, which I've really enjoyed. I want to continue to grow that part of my business and train. So I think it's funny really for me is that I've talked about this a lot with other entrepreneurs, is that I always want more. I never feel like I'm where I want to be. Every time I get busier, it's like I just, it's like you move the goalpost. You're like, what was good enough this time last year is not good enough anymore. I'd probably say that's true of even 6 months ago. I'm always moving my goalpost, which I think is something that is good in one sense, but I think it's always something I'm mindful of, about not doing that in a way that's dismissive of where I've come from and what I've already achieved, because it's not healthy, and it's not. I want to continue to help myself to grow and be stronger. And I think that requires you to acknowledge what you've already achieved and to reward yourself and to appreciate yourself, not always be just moving on as though like you're forgetting what it took and you're being too dismissive of the effort it got to get to where you are now. So I think I always want to grow. I want to do more. I feel like I can support more people, add more value. So that's always what I'm seeking to do. So I want to grow both my training element of my business and my coaching in unison. And so I've been seeking ways to be able to do that, leveraging the way I work, which is remotely, predominantly, when I'm not around in the UK. And I love that because I get to work with so many different people in a wide range of places. And I do love that about it. So a big thing I'm looking at more of really is partnerships and collaborations, because the irony for me is I'm actually someone who's never enjoyed working on their own, but I've left that world of working with lots of people and teams and leading teams and suddenly working all by myself. And I think it's something that has really challenged me a lot of the time, because I have, like many of us, I have a very strong inner critic who's not helpful. And so it's always about managing that. And that's where I've always loved and found networking so valuable, and to surround myself with people who are supportive, who can help me, and who can be someone to talk to when I'm really struggling. But I think that working collaboration and partnership with other people is really attractive to me because of that, connecting with others, sharing ideas, bouncing ideas, evolving, creating together. I do love that. So yeah, I'm seeking more of those types of opportunities going into 25.
So we can do a quick shout out for what sort of people are you looking to collaborate with? What would that look like?
So I particularly love working with others in the, I suppose in this leadership development space who equally want to pull resources, if anything, which is like, you know, how can we be better together? How can we pull our networks, our skill sets? Have we got actually a product between us that's complementary? Or, you know, because that's where I'm trying to align with individuals who maybe not necessarily as like passionate in the middle manager space, but who are passionate in management and leadership. And I think who themselves recognize that they could grow and expand more if they had more individuals to actually do the delivery, because that's the bit I love doing. So I think it's, you know, for me, it's those types of individuals from a partnership perspective. I'm always, you know, as much as I specialize working, I would say really more in that medium to corporate large business side. I still love supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs, because for me, entrepreneurs are still leaders and managers, even if it is just for themselves. And I know how much support I still invest in my own growth in terms of acknowledging that, so that I continue to be better or even better. So
amazing.
It's still those types of individuals I'm keen to
connect with,
support if I can.
Well, there you go. So if you're listening to the podcast today and you fit that criteria, Lisa's details will be in the show notes. And if you're watching the video on YouTube, they will be in the description.
You've done that now, Deborah, and I'm thinking, oh God, what have I doing? Have I fiddled with my face at any point? I didn't.
No, you look lovely.
You look lovely. Terrible. I need to like.
You always like Lisa. You always light up a room when you walk in it, and you're always a pleasure to be around. I was lucky enough to meet you in person last year.
I know, that was amazing.
Networking with you sometime on a little screen, looking at you like in a little square box. And you know, you lived up to what I thought you'd be like in person, which just, you know, just a great personality who really exudes what you do. And you know, you really do well. I just think you're great to be around. And I was so happy when you said you would come on board with the awards and be part of the team, because I felt you would bring that sort of quality of, you know, your experiences over the years and be able to kind of be that, you know, analytical, but also look at the innovation behind the businesses, and you delivered on that 100%. So thank you for your time.
For all of those super flattering comments. It's an honour to be involved in your awards, the prestigious awards. They are. And to have been invited, I really enjoyed the experience. And
well, I hope you'll be back next year.
Yeah,
let's hope. Maybe you might get to the ceremony next year, because I know you can't make it this year, but let's hope you come next year.
The ceremony.
Be lovely to have you there. So thank you for joining me, Lisa. If you're listening to this and you know someone who is a middle manager struggling, then do tell them about Lisa, because we've all got those husbands, wives, neighbours, friends who are struggling with the day-to-day responsibilities of being a middle manager. And we will put Lisa's details in the show notes. And if you're thinking of being a judge for awards, well, you know, hope you listen to what Lisa had to say. It's thoroughly inspiring. In fact, I'm judging some awards this year. I'm judging 2 lots of awards this year. So I'm quite excited about that. And I love doing it because I think you get real insights into what people have been up to. So thank you, Lisa. Wish you well. Hope you can go and get warmed up. And we will just enjoy the 30-degree heat in the UK. And I will send it over to you.
The tables have turned.
Oh, take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Bye.